And like I got to the ball a little late in the game with respect to, singing. Like I think when we first started, like our first records, I was maybe a little timid and like, I don't know how to sing. I don't know if I can do it. So I'm just gonna scream and thrash my vocals out, which is
Mm.
cool too, like we love all that crazy like hardcore metal stuff. But when I started to get comfortable doing that and like how can we evolve this band to sound like, more of what I really want it to sound like, it's like, all right, we gotta learn how to sing and just kind of taking an eye on who influenced me and kind of just using that with my experience of already doing it, kind of just help me get comfortable up there doing it.
This is Tom for Ghost Cult Magazine, and we are delighted to be joined by Zach Amster, vocalist and guitarist for, you can get to tell me if you think this classification is all right. Stoner, doom, alternative, rock band, Abrams. Is that an all right definition? I always hesitate to say alternative anything. 'Cause it doesn't really feel very descriptive, but
Yeah. No, that's good, man. I mean, I think that's one of the things. It's kind of hard to classify us a little bit. We get grouped into a lot of like stoner, doom, sludge stuff, but I mean, I like to just call it straight up rock and roll, heavy rock. Basically, any fan of anything heavy should find something they like about it. So, but I'm good with all that. However you
I
want to
am
classify.
I'm very happy to go with heavy rock. So important to say is the band is just about to release their fifth album, Blue City, on Blues Funeral Recordings, and I've been listening to the album in the past days and really enjoying it. It passes the cycling with determination to the gym and back test that I have, where it's like I really need to get there quickly because I'm in a hurry, and so it's just the right kind of music for going like I'm gonna get through the traffic. So yeah, I
Hell
appreciate it.
yeah. Yeah, man. Thanks for the kind words.
So we'll get into talking about some of the specifics of the album, but I guess to start with, I'd sort of like to get your take on the evolution of the band. So you put out your first album, Lust, Love, Loss, almost 10 years ago in 2015. When you look back on that era of the band, how would you say that you've evolved from that point up to the latest record?
Oh man, it's almost like a completely different band. Our first couple of records, we were, more of like a punk metal sludge crossover band. Not a lot of clean vocals, mostly just screaming, just a bunch of kids. It was just we were a three-piece at the time and, 10 years ago was a while ago. We were really young and just want to play high energy like hardcore metal punk rock and roll crossover stuff. But yeah, along the years we've definitely progressed. It's kind of fun to kind of go with album by album. You can kind of hear like the natural progression of the band from that first record to where we are at now. Learning how to sing and write hooks and do more of the clean singing thing while still sounding and still keeping our punk rock roots, but evolving into more of a sound that I think it's I don't know, it's definitely more melodic, more
Mm.
catchy,
Yeah.
hooky. But like I said, it still has that, heavy kind of punk rock ethos vibe to it that we like to hold on to. So it's a cool progression album by album.
Yeah, I think like having gone back and listened to your previous album sort of as reference points to the latest one, there's definitely that I would say more of the kind of stoner and the sludge elements in previous work. But like you say, it's not you've become more melodic, but it's not at the expense of the heaviness. Like it's still impactful, it's still powerful. But yeah, if anything, I would say that you've maybe kind of like become more adept at hooks and
Yeah.
melodies.
That's something we really tried to focus on, especially the last two records. I'd say maybe the last three records we were like, okay, I'm always a sucker for the big hooks, and yeah, just kind of getting comfortable with singing and writing melodies and doing that really evolved our vocal approach to the songs naturally, I think. So we've had a couple albums of practicing that and this one and the last one I think we really are getting good at it. So
And we touched on this just before we started recording, and you commented on the fact that I had this Mark Lanigan book behind me, and I was going to segue into talking about Mark Lanigan via mentioning that when I see Blues Funeral, it makes me think of the Mark Lanigan Blues Funeral album. So I'm wondering, this is probably a coincidence, but I know that you're a fan of Mark Lanegan. You're a fan of Screaming Trees, and I'm also a huge fan of Mark Lanegan and Screaming Trees. So maybe you can tell me a bit about what he means to you and what his influence has been on you.
Yeah, for sure. Mark's my favorite vocalist of all time. Yeah, he's been huge to me ever since. I mean, I remember in high school picking up Bubblegum, and man, that was probably like 2004. I picked it up, and that wasn't cool at the time when I was in high school. It was like everyone was listening to Blink 182 or whatever was cool. But yeah, something about that record just made me fall in love with him. And I first started really, I first really was into grunge and the trees and all that stuff. But digging into his solo records, Gutter Twins, all that stuff was really important to me. And our label is Blues Funeral Recordings, and the label owner, Jad, is obviously a huge Lanigan fan. So we bond over that, and that's one of my favorite records of his too. And that book is a heavy read, and it's one of those personal things I've ever read, and it's hard to get through, but it's such an epic read. I love it.
Yeah, I totally agree. There were parts of it where it was just like, oh, I just
Yeah.
felt so bad for him. I think I was thinking about this just the other day because of Steve Albini dying. Such a hugely important person to all kind of independent alternative DIY music making. And I was sort of processing how I felt about that. And I was thinking about, other people I admire who've died over the years and who kind of had the biggest impact on me when they died. And Mark Lanegan really hit me hard when he died. And I think maybe part of the reason why it had such an impact on me was because of reading that book, because it really made me empathize with him so much, because he really does reveal his vulnerability in it. And like you say, it's a pretty hard read, but I'm really glad that I have read it for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was a big one for me for sure when he died. I was so super glad to, be able to see him live a handful of times. With the Gutter Twins and solo. Never got to see him with Queens, but yeah, just, feel super lucky to, be able to see him live and on this short time that we have on this planet.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up grunge, because sometimes I feel when I interview people who are a bit younger than me, and I'm going to say, I'm pretty sure you're a little bit younger than me at least, I have a tendency to bring up references that kind of show my age. So when I was sort of thinking about what might be some sort of relevant reference points for the band, I would say like particularly for the latest album, a couple of things that pop into my mind are Queens of the Stone Age and Jane's Addiction. And I was worried by saying that you were going to say like, what, Jane's Addiction? I never listened to Jane's Addiction. But if you're into grunge, I imagine that Jane's Addiction is probably a band that you're quite into, and maybe the band in general is.
Yeah, definitely. I actually got into Jane's late. I never really got them, growing up and stuff, but I got to see him live a couple of times. Probably one of the best shows you can go to.
Yeah.
Perry is a king, just the way he owns the stage. But yeah, I never really got into them too much, but I have heard that, we have a little bit of Jane's flavor with our music, which I mean, I'll take it. That's awesome. I hear a couple of other things a lot too. We get a lot of Failure,
Yep.
those two bands that seem to kind of come up when people talk about our music, which is funny because I never really listened to those bands until like people started telling me that. And we get some Jawbreaker comparisons to similar stuff there. And I never really grew up listening to that stuff, which is cool though. It's like, oh, and then I have all these new records to check out. I'm like, oh, damn it, they did it already. No, but it's cool. I love, I love the comparisons of whatever, someone listens to our band and they can kind of relate, oh, this kind of sounds like this kind of sounds like that. And I think that's really cool. It kind of, we can remind people of some like older grunge Seattle kind of stuff. And, also, like that Failure hum kind of shoegazy
Yeah.
post rock kind of stuff too. So it's a little bit of a, like we were talking about earlier, it's just like a heavy rock melting pot. I think that
Yep.
if you're a fan of any rock in general, there's something for you with our band that you can probably dig.
Well, there definitely are elements on the album where, like you mentioned, there's a bit of a shoegaze element, or there's a bit of a post-rock element in there as well. Thinking about being on stage, and being a frontman specifically, have there been any people, any frontmen basically, or women, who you've kind of found particularly inspiring when you sort of think about how you want to present yourself on stage?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, going off what we were talking about earlier, Lanigan's just the coolest motherfucker up there. Like he doesn't have to move at all and he just owns the stage. But like he's just his own thing. Where the other opposite of the spectrum, like I grew up a huge Mars Volta fan and At the Drive-In fan
That
and
really is
watched
the other side of the
the
spectrum.
absolute opposite 180-degree Cedric Bixler Zavala, who is just like doesn't care about hitting the right notes, and maybe sometimes he's dancing way too much because he knows he's not going to be able to hit those notes. Um, those two, I think, were the biggest for me. Like probably just like visually on stage, like Lanigan can just stand there and command the whole crowd, where Cedric is just so fun to watch and just like all crazy up there. Trying to think, I mean, going back like Chris Cornell is one of my
Mm.
favorite vocalists of all time. That's like too easy though. I mean, Trent too, Trent Reznor,
Hmm.
like just growing up, like those big, huge, popular frontmen, like that's what, got me into wanted me to play music and like I got to the ball a little late in the game with respect to, singing. Like I think when we first started like our first records, I was maybe a little timid and like, I don't know how to sing. I don't know if I can do it. So I'm just going to scream and thrash my vocals out, which is
Mm.
cool too. Like we love all that crazy, like hardcore metal stuff, like, Converge and Botch and all that shit that we love too. But when I started to get comfortable doing that and like, how can we evolve this band to, to sound like, more of what I really want it to sound like? It's like, all right, we gotta learn how to sing and just kind of taking an eye on who influenced me and kind of just using that with my experience of already doing it, kind of just help me get comfortable up there doing it.
Well, mentioning Chris Cornell and Soundgarden, there was a couple of tracks on the album, kind of like in the middle of the album, Turn It Off and Narc, which I thought were a really great change of pace. Like you've got these really ripping, rocking, energetic songs. And those two songs are still energetic, but they're kind of more, they at least have more like contemplative parts in them that I really appreciate. And I think that was actually where I started to feel a little bit of like, oh, I wonder if there's like a bit of Chris Cornell in here. So like I think Soundgarden is kind of a good reference point because they were really good at combining the heavy with also the catchy and the melodic.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that. I mean, I'm still a fan of like the full length record. In this day and age, it's people are moving just the single platform style, but I'll always be a fan of just listening to a record from front to back. And I think it's just really important. It's really hard to how do we keep the listener engaged? How do we keep the audience engaged? And it's always in the back of your mind. You're not writing the record for someone else. You're writing it, for what you want. But like that's what I want. It's like a good start to finish. And it's all about dynamics, really, that we've really tried to hone in on. The quiet and the loud, and combining them and making for a huge, nice front to back listen is kind of combining those two elements. And yeah, Soundgarden was probably one of the best at that. Like Down on the Upside, Super Unknown, those last couple of records, they just have those super good, huge radio. I mean, they got the best singer ever, so they kind of
Pretty
lucked out
much.
with that.
I'm really
But
happy that you mentioned Down on the Upside because I think a lot of people don't really like that album, but it's potentially my favorite Soundgarden album. I love the variety. I think for some people it's like maybe they deviated too much and they experimented too much, but I like the experimentation.
yeah, I mean, same with Super Unknown. Super Unknown had some weird ass songs on it
It's
too.
true.
Like Head or whatever. But yeah, those last two, I mean, I say those last two, King Animal, I don't really count. That's like way later.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two had some weird songs and but also some like they had the huge hits like, Pretty Noose and Burden in My Hands, probably one of my favorite songs of all
Yeah.
time. It's
Yeah, me
just
too.
insane. Those vocals, yeah.
On that topic of the Soundgarden elements, do you go in much for messing around with different tunings?
We did actually. We mainly tune in drop C. It's nothing like, Sonic Youth or
Yeah.
Soundgarden. Those guys have, I mean, they have guitar techs that they take on tour, and we don't have that, obviously. But we have a couple different tunings that we mess with, which kind of, makes it really hard live, just, bringing that extra gear. We're in a small van you got to bring this, one guitar for two songs that are different tunings, which kind of makes it a logistical nightmare. But we're going to probably kind of try and steer away from that. But, whenever I'm writing something and like, if I'm ever stuck, like I'll just, start turning the tuning pegs and see what happens. And then like I wrote a cool riff in this tuning. We're gonna have to figure it out. So yeah,
Does
we
that
do
ever
mess
piss your bass player off?
always. Pisses everyone off. It pisses me off the most too, because it's like I'm the one who's like, guys, I don't want to do a guitar change here. Like it's so much nicer to just have one guitar and just rip it through. And everyone else like kind of wants to play the other song. I'm like, fine. So it's a war within.
Now, you mentioned Converge, and I also wanted to bring up the fact that you worked with Kurt Ballou, legendary for being not only part of Converge but also as a producer. Was that the first time that you'd worked with him?
Yeah, it's our first time with Kurt at God City, and yeah, it was an epic experience.
How did that come about?
We were, so the past couple records we worked with Dave Otero, who's a fantastic engineer. And what's also great about Dave is that he's up the street from us in North Denver. So that makes it so convenient to have just one of the best metal engineers right up the street from you. But with this record, we kind of wanted to try something different. And obviously, just being a fan of heavy rock and metal, it's like, man, what if we hit up Kurt, see if he's interested? And he was extremely responsive when I first initially reached out to him and interested in working with us. And it was really right place, right time, because he had like a last minute cancellation. So we were able to get in. We recorded this thing in September 2023, which is kind of crazy because usually like, he's got a long waiting list, but it was just right place, right time. We got in, we drove from Denver to Salem, Massachusetts. We recorded for about a week and a half. He mixed it about a month later, got it mastered, and it's coming out like, I don't know, what is that, 7 months later, which is usually we have to wait like a whole year almost to get our record out. So, but yeah, the experience with Kurt at God City was definitely a bucket list. He was so cool to work with. Another engineer who we spent a lot of time with, his assistant Zachary Weeks, another fantastic engineer, just a wealth of knowledge, and they were just so cool. We had a lot of toys to play with in that studio too, which I'm really happy with, just with the overall sound of it. It sounds, like we didn't record it live, but it sounds like a live recording, and just the tones are very, I don't know, they sound great to my ears. So I'm hoping that they'll sound great to others as well.
Yeah, I'm not really very good when it comes to sort of explaining or describing the production of albums, but when I listen to Blue City, it sounds somehow massive. Interestingly enough, for me, and maybe you'd be able to give some insight on this. So, Modern Ways and In the Dark, you had the same producer for.
Yep.
To me, when I listen to them, I would say they sound quite different. And I would say maybe that the latest album sounds production-wise more similar to Modern Ways, even though I would still say it sounds like another step again. Do you have any particular kind of view of why these albums sound the way that they do? Like, was there anything aside from, who you're working with, were there anything in terms of specific techniques or approaches that you had where you're kind of like, we want to sort of go in this direction or that direction?
That's a good question and observation. I kind of, yeah, I can kind of agree with you. Modern Ways and In the Dark were done by Dave Otero, and he has a really heavy hand in, especially Modern Ways. He had a very heavy hand in producing and like especially vocals. So he kind of helped us a lot with writing our vocals. That was kind of the first record where it was like a lot of focus on the vocals. Where In the Dark was kind of a transition. That was our quote unquote, everyone has one, a COVID record.
Yeah.
So that was a kind of a change in writing style where, Modern Ways, we kind of wrote in the room together, where In the Dark, I pretty much wrote everything right here at this desk, then presented to the band, kind of went through their filters. And then we took it to Dave, who kind of helped with harmonies, but the vocals were pretty much there, where actually kind of going into Blue City with this record, it was kind of the same writing style where I kind of did the majority of the writing by myself. But when we bring it, when I record it, send it to the guys, we jam it, they end up changing just naturally. So it was the same like writing style as the last two records, but Kurt had a more like laid back approach. He kind of chimed in when he thought it was necessary. Other than that, he's just there to make sure that the band's, comfortable, sounding good, has the right gear, everything like that. So we don't really think too much. Me personally, like I don't really think like, all right, I want this record to sound more like, Modern Ways or like Jane's Addiction or something like
Mm.
that. It's just kind of like when I'm writing, I try not to listen to too much, outside music because I feel like you're like, look, what's hit now? Okay, all this like psych rock shit is hit. Like, fuck. When you
Yeah,
start
you
writing
start
some
kind of like second guessing yourself.
exactly, start second guessing yourself, or maybe you try and like writing towards like what you think is like cool and stuff. So I kind of just like tone that stuff out, and it's just kind of whatever happens. And when we get 10 to 12 songs, sometimes 15 songs that we just kind of work on those 15, take the best 40 minutes and go and record it. So it's just kind of natural luck, whatever energy that we create in the room that happens, I guess.
Well, bringing up the pandemic, and I am to that point of everyone having a pandemic album, I'm really happy that we're now reaching the stage where I'm talking to someone. This is like a post-pandemic album. We finally got to that point because I feel like I was doing so many interviews where it was like, I guess this is time for the pandemic part of the conversation. And this
Yeah.
kind of is that. But, having gone through that, and within the dark, sort of being a child of the pandemic, I'm wondering when you look back on the experience of making that album altogether, like how do you sort of compare that with the overall experience of making the latest album?
Yeah, I never want to go back to that crap again. Yeah, it was just everything was difficult. But that really helped me kind of just like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel that there can be like too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to it. So I feel like it really helped my writing, especially vocally, kind of like writing the hooks, just like sit back, kind of dig in and learn how to just do home recordings. So that's one thing I'll never take for granted is having that time to actually, figure that stuff out. And I feel like developing those skills definitely just helped me as a better writer, better musician. But just like the isolation sucks because really it's all about the band and the four guys in the room, and how it's all about chemistry. It's like how do they click, musically, four guys in the room, four guys on stage. Because what that's we're trying to get back to just being that solid live band. It took a long time because we didn't play for a while, and like our touring plans kind of got screwed with that last one. So yeah, we just worked a lot once all that crap was over, and we practiced a lot and just try and get comfortable as a unit because you can really tell when a band has that chemistry and when when something's a little bit off. So I think that's the biggest thing that we need to just play a bunch, just play live, which we're going to be touring a good amount too. So we're stoked on that.
Now, talking about the four guys in the room, you have had a very consistent lineup over the years, apart from the drummers, which rotated a little bit. But I guess that sort of was maybe a bit more in the early days. So,
Yeah.
like, when did Ryan DeVitt, your current drummer, actually join?
Yeah, Ryan joined probably like it was for the Modern Ways record. So probably he joined in like 2019 or 2018 when we started writing with that. I played in another band with him called Fathers, and I stole him from that band. But and yeah, once we got him, it was just a relief because we've played with so many great drummers. But the turnover, we were turning a Spinal Tap, and we had so much turnover on the throne. But Ryan's been with us for three records, and he's incredible. He definitely just has his own style.
Yep.
That I can't really. I'm used to playing with like more like four on the floor, Joey Castillo kind of like punk rock drummers, where he has this crazy. He listens to a lot of he listens to everything. He's definitely a metalhead, but he's like really into like I don't even know what to call it, like those as tall gosh man, the Toast and a Bossy bands, all those like gent kind of bands. Because
Oh, right.
he's like he's a huge drummer fan, and
Yep.
that just kind of makes our music just a little bit different. So I don't know, he takes a cool take on our music, and I think it elevates us.
Yeah, I think on the latest record, it really stands out. Like if you want to listen to the album and go, I'm going to focus on the drums, there's so much cool drumming going on in terms of the fills and little flourishes. And it's, as a unit, it sounds great. But I think, to your point about sort of like four to the floor drumming style, that can be great in certain circumstances. But I think when you have a rock band that wants to be a bit kind of varied, like, if you take Soundgarden as a prime example, to be able to stretch out in the ways that they did, they had to have a drummer like Matt Cameron who could basically do anything.
Yes.
So yeah, the
Yeah,
I would say
totally.
that your stealing was worth it.
It was, but Ryan will talk so much shit on Matt Cameron, and I won't
Oh
let him.
shit!
I know, man. I'm like, you are crazy, dude. Like, you are absolutely crazy. And Matt
What doesn't he
Cameron,
like about Matt Cameron? I mean, I guess everyone has their taste.
I don't know what's not to like. He was also like wrote so many great songs. Like, was it Fresh Tendrils? I don't
Yep.
even know if I'm saying it right. That's like
Mm.
my favorite Soundgarden song, and I'm pretty sure he wrote it.
Yeah, I think he even wrote some of the lyrics for that one, but he definitely
Yeah.
wrote a lot of that track. Yeah.
He just says he's overrated, but I mean, no way. No way.
Now,
Like,
what about? I could imagine maybe he might be more into Barrett Martin from Screaming Trees because there's maybe
he's
some
not a
of that kind
grunge
of.
guy, man. He's just
Ah,
not a
he's
grunge guy. I
okay.
look see
Well,
Barrett. To me, Barrett, I actually just finished his book too, which is cool. It has some crazy Lanigan stories. But Barrett was definitely like a Bonham. And
yeah.
he'll talk shit on Bonham. So he's just like really into like, how can you talk shit on Bonham? Like, but like Ryan is the greatest. And I mean, he's, as you can tell, we have a great relationship. We just shit talk all day. Cause like our music, we listen to just different things. Like that's like a really cool thing
Mm.
with like what ends up happening with our music. I'm like grew up just a huge grunge guy getting into like hardcore stuff, but we'll meet in the middle. We'll listen to like Converge and High on Fire and stuff like that. But it's a melting pot of influences.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it comes out well. I mean, I guess that's the thing. Sometimes a little bit of tension within the dynamic can produce good results.
Yeah, for sure.
So one thing I did want to ask you about the title of the album, Blue City. So I think I read somewhere that it's partly kind of a reference to being trapped in sort of a familiar, comfortable area. And so I guess what I should have asked you first as a precursor to that question, are you in Denver, Colorado
Yep.
now? And is that where
We
you've always lived?
I grew up in Southern California, but I've been in the Denver area for like 17 years now, so a long time. That's where the
So
band.
yeah. So this kind of idea, or this sort of inspiration for the concept of Blue City, how does that sort of fit into your own personal experiences?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's all personal for me because I mean I wrote all the lyrics for this record, and yeah, it's just kind of getting stuck in the day to day of your life. You go to work, and just kind of doing the same thing over and over. It's just a comfortable routine that you get in. You're like, oh, what if like because especially growing up in Southern California, my whole family's there. I've got a brother and my folks are out there and just kind of like sometimes I'm just like, oh, man, what if I loved growing up there and I miss it. And it's kind of that feeling of like just being trapped in the comfortable normality of your routine where it's like sometimes it's nice to just break shit up, but like it's just a big step, a big change that's scary, I guess. So it's a lot of that. And we talked as a band. We talked pretty much like on the way home after recording. Like we're really bad at naming shit and songs and album titles. It just takes it's a lot of arguing. Like I like this, but I like that. And then this one actually was pretty easy because I was kind of just explaining to the band like what I've been writing about, and I really liked just the title and the visual aspects that Blue City provides. And we agreed pretty quickly that we should just call the album that. And it's one of our favorite songs on the record. So yeah, it was a pretty unanimous decision. And the person who did our artwork, I think, did a great job of kind of representing that feeling that like I was doing, that I was, singing about and writing about. Samantha Moljat, who's just a fantastic artist from the Northwest, who kind of conveyed that pretty well, I thought.
Now, I would say though, I think probably for a lot of people on the outside looking in, when they see a rock band, they would think of, touring around the world and having a whole varied, exciting lifestyle. So maybe when you're talking about a very consistent routine, there are things that people on the outside don't know about. So maybe you can say a bit about what your kind of consistent routine is, outside of when you do go on the road, how kind of consistent is your day-to-day life?
It is, man. I mean, we don't tour that much. I mean, we're definitely going to be changing that up here pretty soon for this album cycle. I'd actually like to tour more, honestly, but it gets difficult when, people get older and people get, into relationships and stuff like that and work commitments. We're not making a lot of money here and stuff. And that's a big part of it is, monetarily, how can we support this expensive life that we live. But my day to day is pretty standard, man. I'm a recruiter. I work from home. And I
Was
talk
that
to.
a was that also like a pre-pandemic routine, or did that
Yeah,
sort
I've
of
been.
slot into place after when everything sort of went
No,
online?
yeah, I've been at working from home like pre-pandemic, but yeah, for about like 6 years now I've been doing it, which I love, but there's that whole isolation factor. But
Mm.
yeah, I work for a pretty big company, recruiting engineers and talking to nerds all day and basically just negotiating, salary contracts with them, which is fun. It's nice to change it up, but yeah, I mean, go to the gym, eat healthy, right? Hang out with the dudes, and practice 2 to 3 times a week. Rinse, wash, repeat. Basically, is my day to day. It's simple, boring. I like simple, man, but you gotta kind of work with what you got, especially with the band and where you're at. But yeah, that's kind of it.
And thinking about that dynamic between the four of you, both, when you're rehearsing together or when you are, yeah, what's that dynamic like? Do you kind of like notice people having particular kinds of different styles? Like have you got someone who tends to get more kind of pissed off at things, someone who's more like practical joker, that kind of thing?
Oh, for sure. It's a lot of fun, man. We got a great group. It's kind of like built into factions. Like we have me and Ryan, who are very similar personality wise. We're big sports guys. We're kind of like the shit talkers. And then you have Graham and Taylor, who are talking about like anime or fantasy novels, shit like that. And we're just out in the back rolling our eyes about these guys. No, but it's fun, man. And it's tight quarters, and we're just in a small E350 van, no trailer. So we're just packed in there like sardines. Sometimes we'll get hotels, sometimes we'll crash at random people's places. We lean on a lot of friends. So it's getting to know everybody. You get to know everyone like really quick when you're living with them, in these types of situations. So kind of taking that and realizing when someone needs space, when someone's not doing well, just give them their space. And but we're really tight. We've been doing this for a long time, and we kind of know how each other operate, and we don't try and push too many buttons.
Yeah, only up to a point, when to ease off.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out, but
And in terms of shows that you've got coming up and tours to support the album, what do you have lined up?
yeah, so we are touring. Our first tour is June 6th through the 21st. We're doing like a big West Coast loop with a great band called Goya from Phoenix, Arizona. They are one of my favorites. And we're stoked to be touring with them. And then in September, we're still finalizing some details, but we're going to be touring out East Coast around Desert Fest, New York, which is a pretty sweet festival that we're super happy to be on. So yeah, we haven't been in East Coast in a while, but we just signed on with a booking agency actually this week that should help us, stay busy and get out there more too. So we're in the talks. We're already in talks about some things and some dates, and really would love to get on some good support slots. I think is the goal for us, but we'll see what we can work up and. Hopefully we'll be busy throughout, 2025. And our big goal is to get across the Atlantic too, would be great. But
Yeah, get yourself over to Europe.
yeah, that'd be great. Is that where you are?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Where are you?
I was in Germany up until the end of last year, and now I'm in the UK. So yeah, basically if you come anywhere within the UK, then I can definitely hop over with no trouble whatsoever. Have you
Awesome.
been over to
Awesome.
the UK before?
I have not, no. Not even individually away from the band, but
I mean, the
we
weather
try.
sucks compared to California, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a little, that's what I hear. It's a little different. But what is he? So it's he's 8 hours difference right now? It's almost
Uh,
bedtime, huh?
what time is it where you are?
It's 1:36 here.
7 hours different.
Okay, 7 hours. Right
Yeah, I
on.
always get confused in the US, because you've got multiple time zones going across
Right.
from one side to the other. So,
I do too.
so in terms of the album itself, when it comes out, so I think it's the 24th
Yep, next
that's
week.
coming out. So just a week or so away, week and a
Mhm.
half. I guess obviously it's going to be streaming, but in terms of actual physical copies, how can people get hold of it and where should they get it from?
Yeah, for sure. We have our awesome label Blues Funeral has, some there's two variants of the vinyl that look great, as well as CDs. And that's available on our Bandcamp and their website. Their website is bluesfuneral.com. It might be Blues Funeral Recordings. Like, if you just Google it, you'll figure it out. But yeah, also our Bandcamp page, abramsrocks.bandcamp.com. It's available there. There is European distribution too, so that should help with shipping costs. I think it's going to be in some stores too, I guess. So maybe your local record store, I think. But yeah, online is probably the easiest way to find it. But definitely all that streaming crap too. So yeah.
And in terms of people keeping track of the band with the release and with live shows and anything else, what's the best way for people to do that?
Yeah, we're most active on Instagram right now. So our Instagram handle is at Abrams the band. Facebook as well. We were dumb when we signed up, and we have like different tags for each, like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. But if you just Google us, you'll figure it out. We try and get on Twitter or X or whatever, and
Mm.
we've messed with like TikTok, but mainly Instagram is the best way to keep up to date with us.
Nice. Yeah, I can understand. It's like social media, it can be very useful, but it can also be a distraction as well. So it's like if you can manage to avoid it becoming too convoluted and too complicated, then I
For
think it's
sure,
for the
man.
best.
It's social media. It's like, there's definitely a lot of positives. It's easy to communicate, with your fans and try and to new fans potentially too. But
Yeah.
this day and age, it's just like to try and keep up with the algorithm. It's just like it causes a lot more harm on me mentally than any good. But yeah,
The dreaded algorithm. It's like the Borg from the Star Trek, just
it really is,
absorbing everything.
for
Well, Zach,
sure.
look, it was a great pleasure talking to you. The band is Abrams. The forthcoming album is Blue City. Check it out. Buy a copy wherever you wish to do so. Support your bands. And yeah, follow the band. Go and see them live. And yeah, hopefully at some point in the future, I will get to see you guys on stage. But yeah, until then, I hope the release goes well and enjoy the forthcoming shows.
Thanks so much, Tom. Appreciate it.